It's a lot easier to create derivative content from something that's really meaningful. Just invest in a really good piece of long form content that is your unique, differentiated point of view. And, let content be that differentiation engine for your business. At the end of the day, though, good content still drives so much value. It still has to be good, authoritative, differentiated content.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Oh, freaking K. Here we go. All right. We hit the button and now we just got to explode out of the front gate. It's like the old school horse racing where we are just like off to the races. The flag is waving. I'm excited. My guest today is an absolute badass. I don't even know why he said yes. Why is he here? I feel very fortunate. We're all going to learn from him today. He is a marketing leader, a thought leader, a speaker, a growth strategist, a fellow podcaster, prolific writer. Decades of experience, key roles in demand-based, Geoforce, Ryan. He's spoken at Asia's largest B2B marketing conference, and now we get to chat with him today, host of the Pipeline Brew podcast. Let's go. That is the one thing this show is missing. He has been featured, his articles have been featured in Demand Gen Report, Chief Marketer, Sharebird, you name it, Chief Marketing Officer at Pipeline 360, Matt Hummel. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for that kind introduction. I love it.
Yeah, dude, I'm your hype man, right? Just next time you're going to speak at that conference, let me know. I'll just walk behind you with a boombox and be like, it's Matt Hummel. It's Matt Hummel.
Works for me.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I'm glad you're here. And I can't wait to learn from you. So I got to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but obviously you work out. So here we go. Okay, here we go. Matt, go ahead, grab Thor's hammer. You got that? Okay, there you go. So take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, a bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Oh, man. The biggest myth that I'm seeing right now, Casey, is marketers still think their big budgets are coming back. Guess what? They're not. The growth at all costs era, I hate to say it, at least for now, it's over. Interest rates aren't helping. Valuations favor profitability, not burn. We all know AI, which is a whole topic in and of itself. It's raising the bar on efficiency. I really believe at best, budgets will be flat. At worst, they're going to go down, and companies are going to expect marketing teams to reinvent how they work and how they impact revenue. And I just truly believe that, marketers can't wait for big budgets to come back to find success. They've got to figure it out. They've got to figure it out quickly.
Dude, that sounds dark. That cash waterfall, it's not coming back. We can't just
well, I mean, you gave me Thor's hammer, so I don't know,
Yeah, I did, man. You just smashed that thing. We got a bunch of people. All right, let's pass out the tissues to everyone. Okay, everyone got tissue. So what do we do, man? Like where does this come from? What are we just kind of like hopeful? It's like we got our heads in the sand. We're hoping that it'll go back to that old way of just like pouring buckets of money on this stuff.
It is. I mean, just to respond to that, I spend a lot of time in market and I talk to a lot of customers, and I have the unique advantage of marketing to marketers. So I'm out talking to peers in the industry a lot, and I still get this sense that they're just waiting. They're like, well, it's just going to be really hard because targets are going up and budgets aren't. Like, guess what? You've been saying that for 4 years now. That's on you. You've had plenty of time to prepare for this. And by the way, you use the word dark. I get that. It's not though, because you know why? Because this favors the customer. Oh, now marketers have to focus on the customer, which is one of the things you asked, what do we need to do? I think there's 5 things we need to do.
Oh yeah. Oh, sweet. I love numbered lists. Let's go. 5 things.
Let's do it. So number 1, you have to put the customer at the center of all you do. It's not a slogan. It's a practice. That conference you mentioned that I was leading the panel discussion in Asia, somebody said, oh, we've got to be customer centric. And I said, what does that mean? And she's like, I'm like, it's one thing to say it. It's another to do it. You've got to spend time with them. And again, I'm fortunate enough to be a marketer, but I could assume I know everything that my customers are thinking because I'm the same, but I don't. And it's fascinating what I learn. You've got to listen to how they talk. You've got to understand what motivates them, what keeps them up at night. You've got to remember, there's not just one demand gen person. It could be a demand gen person at a certain size company, at a certain industry, in a certain geography. The time I've spent in Asia Pacific this year has been so eye-opening because what they care about and how they think, it's radically different than, Western civilization. So that's been really eye-opening for me. So that's number one, put the customer.
How's it? Oh, sorry, real quick. How is it different? How is it different mentality?
The biggest thing I've learned is there's two things. They really care about being serviced by people who understand them. So they actually appreciated me coming over, an American CMO coming over and meeting with them. But ultimately, when we were talking about doing business, they wanted to know, hey, do you have people in region that are going to service us? And that's what I heard consistently every time I would meet with a customer or prospect. That was the biggest one. The other one is they're
Mm.
so kind. The way they do business, you hear a lot about the way Asians do business, that it's just very, cutthroat and clinical. That was not my impression. It was, hey, let's go break bread together. Let's bring a gift to the meal. And I'm not talking about going to Target and grabbing a candle. I'm talking about making homemade cookies and bringing them to the lunch. And it happened every time. And it was expected, but it was also received with such grace. And it was just so cool to see each time.
One of my favorite business dinners and lunches were when I was in Tokyo. It was fun and it was genuine. Yeah, it was a really good time. And I was, like, instantly in, I'm like, "Oh, this is great, I'm in," and then I was like, how can I add to this? Like, how can we increase the generosity? And I think it's even, when pouring the sake, it's like, very much a tradition that it overflows the cup, because there's just so many really cool traditions, you know?
That's such a great point. Yeah, it really is, or there really is. So I love that. All right. So number two, focus, 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 focus. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but you have to know what you can do. I just went through planning exercise with my team for 2026. My product marketer, who I adore, brought me this great plan. And I was like, hey, this is awesome. How are you going to do it? He's like, It's ambitious. I'm like, no, it's not ambitious. It's unrealistic. You can't do it. And he said, but the business needs it. And I said, yes, you're not wrong, but what the business needs is a plan that's realistic for you to achieve and achieve really well. And so I've said this throughout my career. When marketers create plans, they have to both achieve goals, but they have to be achievable. And those are not one and the same. And so you've got to stop and create plans that ultimately align to service your goals. Now, if your goals are unrealistic, maybe that's a different conversation, but that's where I think marketers assume, well, I don't have as much budget. Well, rethink your plan. Go through line by line and really think about what do you need to do. The five things that I'm going to unpack kind of all work in hand to help you with that. But ultimately, the other thing, and I was just meeting with the customer this week to kind of mentor her on this very thing of, because she was saying when I met with her last week out in the UK, we just don't have the budget or bandwidth to do all these different, segments that the business is going after. And I said, guess what? You don't have to. Have you sat down with sales and said, let's look at all the segments that we're trying to target and how are we actually going to succeed in going and driving the business we need? And she said, no, can you walk me through that? And I did. And I said, look, it's easier. Sometimes it's easier said than done. I get that. But ultimately, if you can, quantitatively start to map things out and you can lay out what you need to accomplish within these segments and where you feel like marketing can have the biggest impact. And that's the biggest thing, Casey, is I think marketers just assume I need to do everything. It would be great if we could, but where do you really need the biggest impact? Does sales, if they're a heavy outbound motion, do they really need anything other than maybe some messaging? Would they love more? Sure. But maybe you just need to make sure that they have messaging that actually works and is on brand. So, that's number two is focus, which really goes hand in hand with number three.
Maybe this is an impossible, unachievable question, but how do you balance the achieving of goals and the goals that are maybe a little bit of a push, but not so much of a push that you can't achieve them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think I think you should always have goals that push you. And, it's taken me a while to appreciate that. But, because earlier in my career, I would get so mad if the board or the CEO or the CMO in that case was like, you need to go jump 10 miles. And you're like, but I can only jump 8. And they're like, no, you can do it. You will do it. And that almost you have to do it. You have no choice really pushed me. And now that I've grown in my career, I understand because if we just let people, that sounds weird to say, but if we just let people achieve what they think they can achieve, you're not going to push them. And again, the reality of marketers' budgets going down and targets going up, and frankly, the world B2B marketing in my mind has never been more difficult. Bigger buying groups, the complexity, the anonymous buyer, all the things. It's harder and harder, but I think marketers need that push. It gets them out of their comfort zone. It makes them rethink. And again, I go back to my number one point here, which is you've got to put the customer at the center. So to answer your question, how do you strike that balance? I think you have to be really realistic. And the best exercise I do every time when I plan, whether it's at the program level, the annual level, the quarterly level, it doesn't really matter. I clearly lay out, here's what my plan is set to achieve. Here's the goals. Here's what my plan is set to achieve. There is risk. And here is the risk. And look, here's our risk mitigation plan. But based on what we've done in the past and how we believe this plan will operate, there's still some risk. And by the way, there's always risk in marketing. If marketing was easy, then, we'd all be CMOs at companies for 20 years. But the reality is CMO tenures, less than 2 years, which by the way, I just hit my 2-year anniversary. So I'm on the other side.
Hey, let's go. All right.
Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, it sounds like but like that, even that first number, how do you set that first number? Is it based on the request from above? Are you just literally, it's the math of this much in marketing spend, this cost of acquisition equals this potential outcome?
Yeah. I mean, I start at the qualitative level of, you know, here's what marketing's value to the business is. We are going to build a differentiated brand. We are going to enable sales to do what they do best, which is to sell. Now, those aren't goals that you can, measure the success of. Yes, we can, there's brand goals, there's, sales efficiency and effectiveness goals. But then from there, I start to map, I kind of take a bottoms up and a top down approach of here's what I'm going to do to deliver on those value adds to the business. Here's the quantifiable contribution to the business. At Pipeline 360 today, I'm not given, hey, Matt, you need to hit 50% of the number, through Influence Pipeline. My CRO and I, we share the entire number. And so that's why my third point around, sales and marketing alignment is so important because again, for me, and I think the whole idea of marketing attributed pipeline and influenced and sourced and all that, it's actually, I get it. It's pushed marketing to be closer to the revenue. I think it's had, detrimental effects. I think it let a lot of brands be short-sighted around investing in brand because they were so focused on we need to hit that near-term number. The biggest value of marketing is creating a brand. Good brands drive demand at the end of the day. And I'm not saying marketers shouldn't help do actual things that create demand, but not at the expense of your brand, because otherwise demand gets more expensive. You're only addressing, as you know, that 5%. You're just not setting yourself up for success long term. So how do I sort of get to that exact goal? For me now, it's really delivered in conjunction with sales. It's not hey, marketing's going to deliver 38% and sales is going to deliver 62%. It's here's our collective go-to-market plan to achieve our goal. And, I've got a CEO who understands both sales and marketing, which helps tremendously because he's not pushing me to do unnatural things like, hey, you need to go and drive a certain amount of demand based on the old serious decisions, waterfall or whatever, or deliver X amount of, he just said, it's you and the CRO's job to hit the number. And that's that. And so now I have metrics that matter that I report out on, but ultimately the metric that matters most is, pipeline health, pipeline efficiency, sales velocity, average deal size, and churn. And those are the things that I really care about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the big takeaway for me from that was you're not making that decision in a silo, the collaboration with sales, and then it's down to you guys. That's your job now to hit that number. So aligning up front, hey, both of our heads are out here. Like we've planted this flag together. Let's make sure we hit this thing together. Then, man, it kind of squashes all chit chat about alignment.
It really does. But alignment, like any relationship, not that it's like, oh, I need to be aligned with my wife. Although with kids, you really do need to be, but it's just communication. Communication is not a one-time thing. Alignment's not a one-time thing. And so kind of that point number 3 around aligning with sales and marketing, for me, that's not all right, we have our plans. Let's go. We're aligned. It's, my CRO and I talk at least once, if not multiple times a day. My wife recognizes his voice. My kids even recognize his voice when they come home from school. They're like, "Are you talking to Tom?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Weren't you talking to him when we left for school?" "Yeah." But Tom and I, we break bread together. We spend time together. We know what's going on in each other's worlds, but then we both deeply care about the same thing at Pipeline 360, which is to grow the business and to delight our customers. And so that's what we care about. And somebody told me a while ago, it's easy for sales and marketing to be aligned when the business is looking good, but when it's not, that's when fingers can start to be pointed. And thankfully, in the 2 years I've been here, Tom and I've never pointed fingers at each other. And look, we've had ups and downs in the business, but we have that foundation that we've built and maintained that, when things are when we need to figure stuff out, we get on the phone and we figure it out. We fly to one of another cities and we figure it out. And so just that, and people listening, they say, well, that's the CMO's perspective. What about me as a director of whatever or an individual contributor? It's the same. You've got your own stakeholders. Make sure that if it's a product manager, if it's a a GM of the business, whoever you're supporting, you should have that same level of alignment with, because at the end of the day, you've got to remember, we're all part of one big team here. We all, if you like American football or, European football, kind of same metaphor of we're trying to move the ball down the field and get it, get it in the goal. And everyone has their own position, but at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. And I think good teams understand everyone has a unique role and appreciate that individual's role, but also understand what the team is doing. And it's, again, it's easy to say, but I just think people get so siloed in their day to day that they miss that big picture of what they're actually trying to achieve as a business.
Yeah, 100%, man. Big picture, achieving those goals. That's powerful. Damn. I mean, all of this, I gotta imagine if you just do even one or two, like you're probably light years in front of other folks. But like, what's 3?
No doubt. Yeah. So the next one's, well, I think, was that 3? So we had sales and marketing alignment, focus, and put the customer at the center.
So actually, no, that led into the sales and marketing alignment. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay.
So number 4 is, you've got to create interesting and meaningful content. We do a lot of market research, which, by the way, is a great way to create interesting and meaningful content. But it highlighted something significant, that B2B buyers were really discouraged by the state of what they felt like was AI generated content. That told me 2 things. 1, B2B buyers still value content. If they didn't, they wouldn't care about that they didn't like the state of AI driven content. So they still value content. They don't value content that feels disingenuous and doesn't really speak to them. And so, look, the reality is when budgets go down, you've got to look to things like Gen AI or offshoring in certain cases, but you can still create really meaningful, impactful content on a small budget. I think that's where, investing in market research and really using that to create a unique point of view, have a point of view. And then it's I don't want to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier to create derivative content from something that's really meaningful. Just invest in a really good piece of long form content that is your unique, differentiated point of view. And, let content be that differentiation engine for your business. That's how, the world around us is changing. Obviously, AEO is becoming a huge thing. I'm not an expert on that by any means, but I know, it's not replacing Google, but I think the way that buyers are buying, it's shifting, and it's not completely shifted, but it's shifting. At the end of the day, though, good content still drives so much value, and it's how whether they're consuming it through paid media or consuming it ultimately through an answer optimization engine or a search engine, it doesn't really matter. It still has to be good, authoritative, differentiated content. So that's number 4.
Do you have a favorite method for creating?
For creating differentiated content or derivative content?
No, the differentiated,
Yeah. I mean, my favorite method is research based.
the research. Yeah, tell me more about that, right? Because I think a lot of my content is created by like sort of like conversation, but it's less research focused, maybe. Tell me more about the research side.
I love the method that you just outlined. I don't, for us, although I do have a lot of conversations, they're more in person, one to one. So it's harder for me to throw all those into machine learning and say, hey, come back with something really interesting. So for me, at Pipeline 360, and what I've done previously is we'll go out. So first I'll create what do I want to talk about? So it has to be either aligned with our brand or where we're trying to move our brand. So there's a little bit of, hey, this is where we think things are going. We hope, knock on wood, we hope the market research supports it. And it usually does if we've got our finger on the pulse. So we'll go out and we'll design a survey, 20, 25 questions that we know ultimately through the slicing and dicing and analysis will ultimately help lead us to, this really interesting point of view. But we'll survey, at least 500 people. So in our case, 500 B2B marketers, certain titles, certain geographies. It's really just how do you want to slice the data depending on what you want to do with it. So I'm a big believer, as everyone should be, start with the end in mind. So for us with market research, it fuels my time on the road, whether it's one-on-ones, it helps me get in front of prospects and customers. Hey, we've got some great insights through some research we just completed. Could we get an hour? Casey, the number of doors that's opened has been incredible. Pipeline 360 is, a growing brand, but we're not a Salesforce brand. We're not a household name. And so I mentioned Salesforce. It got us in the door to meet with 30 Salesforce marketers in EMEA last year or earlier this year. I mean, it's just incredible. And that's just one example of where we've met with entire, marketing orgs. I presented to a team of about 100 earlier this year, all through this research. And it just gives you credibility because it's not me coming in and saying, I think and I feel and Pipeline 360 this or that. This is what the market's saying. This is what separates high performers and low performers and what we see, through our research and backed by these types of meetings. Because the more meetings I have with customers where I'm sharing this, then I have anecdotal evidence to say, by the way, I was meeting with one of your peers and they had an interesting point of view on this topic too. And so, we go survey the market and then I work with a content agency who will do the analysis and ultimately write the long form piece of content. It's roughly a, 15 to 20 page white paper, ebook, whatever you want to call it. And then I've got this gym. It's great for PR. It's great for events. It'll fuel my field event strategy, my panel discussions. I can create 6 months worth of fresh new content because there's so much in it. And by the way, I'm spending less than 30 grand to do that. That's powerful.
And I think this doesn't go away even because it only gets noisier, and so we need more and more filters. The fact that you have put the time in, curated research. I wonder if it's almost like everyone becomes the Forester now. Everyone becomes the serious decisions.
Yeah, no, it's true because, we looked at working and look, I have nothing negative to say about those organizations. They're great at what they do, but I looked at working with them, sort of this co-branding offering. It's 3 to 4 times the price. And, that's great for certain brands if you've got the budget and you want to really lean into that Forrester platform. For businesses like us that, don't have that budget or want to invest it in other ways. And frankly, we've not needed it because we've been consistent with this. It's one of those things that's, when you it's harder to do when you're starting out because maybe you're not well recognized for that certain point of view. But if you really look at, hey, it's a lot like SEO. You want to talk about things that are, interesting and already being searched for, but you also need to balance against where there's just an overwhelming number of those types of search queries already, because then it's going to be really hard to get in and have, you know, a planted foot, if you will. So that's kind of, you can almost look at where if somebody's out there saying, where do I start? Kind of start there. And, you know, you can use Gen AI to even help you. Hey, here's our business. Here's kind of some ideas that I'm thinking about market research. Can you help me assess from, you know, what else is being talked about? Where do you think we have a unique point of view? That it's not, they're not doing the work for you, but they're just helping do a lot of the legwork to get you going.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. I love this, man.
All right. Number 5. And then by the way, I do have a bonus one. I'm just going to give you a heads up.
Yahtzee.
Love that game. Number 5, do high impact, low cost work. Now, what does that mean? Things like messaging refinement. Listen to gong calls, listen to your sales calls, sit in on sales calls. Guess what? That doesn't cost any money, but it can deliver a ton of value if you're like, man, you know what? I went to a lunch, by the way, a few weeks ago with a customer and a sales rep. And it wasn't a meeting I would normally attend because it was just them catching up and they were talking about their next program they wanted to build. And I heard these things. And I was like, this is so interesting. In the 2 years I've done this, I've never heard a customer show interest in this or talk about this a certain way. And I took it back and I started looking at our messaging saying, huh, I'm going to go test this out. Message testing, by the way, you don't need money to do that either. You hear something, you get an idea, you go talk to the next 5 customers about it.
Yeah.
So sales enablement's another huge thing. It's high impact. It's no cost. You know, you can get so much value out of by up leveling and, you know, just enabling your sales force. So walk them through, reinforce packaging and pricing, reinforce messaging, talk to them about what you're hearing in the market. Listen to what they're hearing in the market. I mentioned pricing and packaging. That's another free lever that can make a huge difference. We recently started doing end of quarter promotions to help just drive those late quarter deals. It has been tremendous for the business. It's given sales reps this new life where they're like, you know, well, we thought we'd sort of gotten every dollar out of our customers that they, you know, wanted to spend. And now we're finding these pockets because at the end of the day, as long as you're doing it in a way that is aligned with what customers want and what they need, you're not being salesy, you're adding value. And we all know if you in the world of marketing, at the end of a quarter, if you don't spend it, you lose it. And then not only does that affect you that quarter, it affects you the next year because it comes out of your annualized run rate budget. So marketers want to spend money. At the same time, they need to spend it in ways that they can demonstrate, you know, value and ROI. So, you know, we feel strongly that our business checks both of those boxes. And so if we can make it easier and entice our buyers, so that's been huge. So, you know, those are just a couple examples of things that can really move the needle, but don't cost any money.
Talk to me about this end of quarter, end of year, even happening right now. I've seen it done wrong. I've seen it where, like, if you can get this giant B2B deal over the fence. Yeah, this was as like a young marketer, and they're like, if you can get this deal done, we'll give you a free iPad. And I was like actually kind of mad and frustrated because I was like one piece to a giant sale and I'm not the signer and I can't really do anything about it. And it was like a tease because there's no way I was ever going to get that, you know? Um, but a little bit of urgency, I think, but in the other direction, we go, well, you know, it's B2B. They're not going to respond to offers and things like that. So let's not even try it. So it sounds like maybe you've found that sweet middle.
We haven't, and we don't do anything kitschy, if you will, like that, where we're like, hey, if you take this meeting, we'll send you a laptop without a keyboard. And then if you buy from us, we'll give you the keyboard. You know, because you see a lot of that nonsense out there. That's a terrible example, but, you know, we understand, well, and in your case, we don't sell expensive software deals. We sell, you know, media and demand gen services, but you know, for the majority of buyers out there, when to your point, there's other people involved. Sending someone an iPad for the person buying, by the way, the person who is actually the buyer probably already wants to buy. They're the champion within the business. It's the CFO or the CMO or the CIO or the direct, you know, the procurement person who isn't comfortable buying. They don't care if you get an iPad. In fact, they may say, you know what, that's anti-bribery or whatever. So for us, we don't do that. We do value add. So and we change it up depending on the quarter. We're always testing new things. But for example, if we're going to offer we'll use it as a way to try to get our average deal size up. So if a customer normally spends, say, 25,000 with us on a given program, if they can get to 30,000, then we'll give them, maybe a discount, or we will, um, we'll offer them an additional service. So we also do content creation services. It's a fairly new service that we started offering. It's a great way if we can say, hey, by the way, if you could, I do you have any extra money into quarter? Yeah, but I'm just not sure I want to spend it. Well, guess what? Did you know we offer content services? So if you're worried about, it has to be meaningful to them. Well, I don't know that I have content that we can activate in enough time. Well, did you know we have content creation services? We can create on brand, really impactful content for you and then activate it. And if you can spend that 30 grand with us, we'll give you a free piece of content. So it's a way for us to not only, it's almost like a loss leader, if you will, or, it's marketing investment, right? If we want to market our content services, then we can give some of it away to customers as a way to get that, that foot in the door with them to our next quarter. They're like, that content was, not only was it good, but it actually worked really well. And the demand that you guys delivered on, I'd like to actually talk to you about buying that now. And so we do things like that where it's always value add, and it's it's low cost for us. So we kind of know our levers internally of, because that's kind of our criteria. What can we do that's, not going to impact our margins significantly, but is going to help us, either drive awareness around a new service or offering, or increase the average deal size. And at the end of the day, again, our North Star is customer growth. So as long as it's within that parameters and it's not, it's not affecting the business financially, then it's great. And it's worked. And it's one of those things where we've not overcomplicated it.
That makes a lot of sense, man. All right. Dang. Bonus time?
Okay. So bonus one for you. Bonus one. It's the Yahtzee. So this one is so straightforward, and yet I hear so many marketers who either don't think about this or are handcuffed to not do it, which is care about your existing customers. So what do I mean by that? So many marketers I talk to, they're only focused on acquisition. They're only focused on net new logos or net new buyers within an existing account, but they're not really focused on how do I grow the business we already have? And this could have been the number one thing on my list. I just didn't want to take anything else off. And a list of 6 doesn't sound as exciting. So, but Casey, efficient growth lives in retention and expansion. If you have a churn problem, fix it. If your customers aren't growing with you, that's a problem, because by the way, if they're not growing, they're probably churning. So I always say $1 from an existing customer is the same as $1 from a new customer. $1 is $1 is $1, right? And in fact, it's a more profitable dollar because they're already a customer. You're not having to work as hard to, acquire that additional dollar. And I don't mean, you should just assume and expect them. There's an art and a science to marketing to existing customers, but I can't tell you how many marketers I talk to. They're like, no, we agree, but we're only gold on, or we're only KPI on net new logos. Well, have you challenged that? Well, no. Why not? I challenged it at a previous company, and the growth with our existing customer, they said, we can try this. I said, great. I'm going to put some money towards it and let's just see what happens. The growth within our existing customers skyrocketed, and marketing's ROI skyrocketed. It was, it was incredible. And sales actually appreciated the support that we were giving them, because they realized, because a lot of times they think, no, these are mine. I've got it. Sales reps they're not always thinking about that sort of strategic, if you're selling that next product, or, kind of that what's next strategy, if you've got multiple products or solutions or even a platform that you're trying to ultimately get them to, sales still needs that messaging support, that enablement, that strategy support of, hey, here's what's next. Here's how you can start to think about growing your existing customer. And so, I'm not saying there's one tactic that works from a marketing perspective, but again, it's that alignment and it's that investment, whether it's messaging, enablement, or actual demand into existing customers. It unlocks so much efficient growth within those accounts.
For the folks that are listening and that have admittedly focused too much on the other side, too much on the net new logos, how do you get started moving back in that direction? Or is there is there a first step? Is there a
Yeah.
rewrite the balance,
Yeah. Well, a lot of it, I mean, it's a great question. And again, it's easier. I'm on the leadership team, so I get to have some of that say. If you are on the leadership team and you have a voice, use it. A lot of it depends on too, like where are you as an organization? Are you trying to are you PE backed business late stage and you need to sell? You should probably be spending more time on investing in your customers because that's going to improve your EBITDA. So it's starting to understand those nuances where at the end of the day, most valuations, they're not based on how many logos you have. They're based on your EBITDA and they're based on, year-over-year growth or a combination of the two. Guess what? I didn't just say, how many net new logos did you have? They want to know, so, but if you're a more established company and marketing's just focused on net new logos, that's not a bad thing. If you only focus on existing customers, at some point you're going to run out, you know, of runway. So I think, again, it depends on your company. It depends on your role. It depends on your title, all that stuff. But have a conversation, ask questions. I think a lot of times what I found, Casey, is that there's just this impression that marketing's role is only for acquisition. And so if you just simply say, hey, I heard, or hey, I have experience actually that's been really meaningful to the business. And, I know that you want us to focus on this, but I understand what the business goals are, and the business goals are to grow XYZ. I think there's some other ways we could think about that. And by the way, a lot of companies get tripped up on this too, because they will say, well, I don't have a customer marketing team. So you don't need a customer marketing team because guess what? The challenges that your customers face are the same that your prospects face. It's a messaging exercise. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's an excuse. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, we don't have that customer marketing team. So guess what? They used to be a prospect and now they're a customer. They have one product or one solution. So simply recognize them and, for them being a customer, that's the easy part. Now you don't have to convince them of who you are. Just start to talk about the next problem or the next opportunity. And then, buying's not a linear journey, I recognize, but it's like, all right, make them aware that they have a new problem. Position yourself as the opportunity and then go sell it.
I'm glad we had a bonus round, and I like that bonus one is it's almost like if I were to clickbait, I'd say there's 5 and man, they're powerful. And then you got to have them. Otherwise you're going to fall apart. But that 6, that's the rocket ship,
It really is. It really is.
Well, dude, my next question really is like, who are you? How do you know these things? Can you take me back in time, right? Little you days, did you know you're going to be a marketing leader, just totally crushing it left and right, teaching us on podcasts? What was it like being you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I grew up, my dad actually got a marketing degree, but went into sales, which I feel like is very normal for people who get a marketing degree.
For sure.
But, I grew up in a house where he was a business guy. And so I sort of had this leaning and appreciation towards business, but my mind, it was like a marketer. I would read the circulars that would come in the newspaper and I would appreciate whether it was the creative or the pricing strategy. And I'd go grocery shopping with my mom and I'd be like, oh, we should get that pasta sauce. Look at it looks like it's from Italy. It has to be good. And so, just goofy things like that where, I just, now when I was a kid, did I know I was going to be a marketer? No, but I just had this leaning towards it. And then when I got to high school, it's funny, we actually had a marketing club. And I don't even remember what we did in marketing club. All I remember is that we made it to state. We won regionals, we made it to state, and I had a blast doing it. And it was at that point where I'm like, okay, I'm destined to be a marketer.
Wow.
So fast forward, I go to college.
Do you even know what it was at the time, or just like, this is fun with friends?
No, it was fun with friends. I didn't know what marketing was. I still don't know what marketing is. I'm just kidding. But, I go to college and guess what? I didn't want to do marketing. I wanted to do psychology. Because why? Because I was going through a phase of my life where I was just rebelling against everything. And I'm like, no, psychology is so interesting. And, it's the science of people and how they think. And that's marketing, right? My dad's like, you're not going to get a job.
Right.
And so, but he was great. He sort of let me go do my thing. And but guess what? I hated psychology. And no offense to psychologists, but it was not for me. And so, you know, what did I do? Without my dad forcing me to, he just let me come to my own realization. I got into marketing and I freaking loved it. And, this was 20 plus years ago, and marketing has evolved, but it hasn't. It's a lot like photography where, the good photographers are those who grew up in the age where you had to take a picture one at a time and wait to process it. And not only did you have to wait to process it, but most good photographers actually would go process it themselves. They'd understand the science of, how to adjust color and saturation and all these things to where today we have Photoshop. Heck, maybe people don't even know what Photoshop is because you've got an AI tool, but every setting in Photoshop is something that you could do manually in the black room or the dark room. And so I just feel like, that parallel to my marketing degree, I just learned so many of the basics through my studies, and everything was segmented. There was, creative, there was ad agency, there was branding there. And I don't even know if demand was a real thing at that time, at least as we kind of think about it today. But I just got this big picture understanding of the art and the science and the data side of marketing. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. I still mentor a lot of young marketers in their career, and they're like, what do I do? And I said, you just got to try things. So coming out of college, I thought, I know I want to do marketing, but I don't know what I want to do in marketing, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. It totally does. Um, I have a bit of a hypothetical question for you. Well, okay, I may or may not have a time machine in New Hampshire. So you come do an event, get a little Boston customer event, drive north a little bit, get some beer, some lobster. It's in the backyard covered in a tarp. So we use this time machine and you get to go back in time to visit yourself. And this is like you 4 days after getting that marketing degree, right? Like maybe we still don't know what it is, but like, what do you say to that Matt who just got that marketing degree a couple days ago?
Yeah. Two things. One, it's not going to be an easy path because I thought it would be. I thought this is going to be great. I actually started out working for one of my professors who taught one of my marketing courses. He wanted to start a consulting firm. He had just retired as the EVP of marketing and merchandising from 7-Eleven. Big dude, and had a great career and wanted to start a retail consulting firm. And so I thought, yes, let's do it. I'm going to be traveling the world with this guy, making big money. I was single, didn't have kids. It was not that. I was sitting at a computer cleaning up decks for him all day, and I didn't really appreciate it at the time. And I've ended up working for the guy 3 times, so it wasn't a negative thing. But and I credit a lot of my career success to his investment in me, which I just now for me I want to give that back to others. But it's not. It's a grind, and there's so many marketers who have worked for me where I had one example, Casey, where this young woman was like, "I don't really like my title." I'm like, "Okay. Are you asking for promotion?" Like, she's like, "No, I just don't like my title." And I think it was like digital specialist. And I said, okay, what title do you want?" She goes, "I don't know, just something that's more exciting, like marketing ninja, or, something that makes me sound like I'm not junior in my career." Fast forward, I didn't give it to her. Fast forward, that carried over to how she worked. "I don't really like this. I don't feel like I should be doing this." Like, you're 2 years out of college. And look, I'm not of the mindset that you have to go to college and you have to work your way and you have to pay your dues just because I paid my dues and I'm going to yell at you to get off my lawn if you don't. But, I just still think there's only so many things you can accelerate learning on. And sometimes you cannot accelerate experience. And, and again, I've worked with some of the smartest people. A guy I hired when I was at Thomson Reuters to run ABM, he was 10, 15 years younger than me. I learned so much from him. I just said, I need to get out of your way. And he went on to have a hugely successful, run there. But, there's just something to be said for experience. So that's number one is just, it's hard, but guess what? You could apply that to any career. You've got to start somewhere. Number two, I would not have worked for an ad agency. So advertising was my favorite subject when I was in university, but man, the ad agency I worked for, maybe it was that one. I worked for a PR firm too as well, but they did ad and creative and all that stuff too, but it wasn't for me. I wouldn't trade the time because, now I work with a ton of agencies and I at least appreciate being on, what it's like being on the other side. And I think that's helped me become a better partner. But man, the grind and the stress, and you think, oh, ad agencies, you're going to parties, you're doing big launches, you've got this, everyone just wants to take you out for these wasn't like that.
Wasn't like that, huh?
So that's what I would do if I could come to beautiful New Hampshire in your time machine.
All right. Well, let me know next time you're doing a customer event. I may have one back there. Last question on that is, do you think you would listen to yourself?
Do I think I'd listen to myself back then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good question.
Like you give yourself all this feedback.
Yeah. You know what? Candidly, I probably wouldn't have. One of the best pieces of advice somebody gave me is when I was working at Deloitte. She said, Matt, you say no quickly a lot. I was like, I do. Again, that was 15 years ago, and I still find myself. Thankfully, I've overcome that, but I still see it, going through my mind where someone's saying something, and I already know the answer. And the answer is no. Like, no, Matt, just listen. Listen. God gave you 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. So just listen. And it has helped me so much because now I just get really annoyed when there's people around me who just say no, so quickly. I'm like, why not? So thankfully I'm not that guy anymore. And if I am, it's a slip up and I catch myself and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Let me make sure I understand what you're trying to say. And I've had, not only was that woman at the time so great to be so direct with me, but I've had, mentors and bosses throughout my career who will just stop and say, instead of saying, no, you're wrong, or I'm going to put my CEO foot down, they're going to say, hey, tell me more about that. What do you mean? And then because not everyone's a great communicator or a great communicator at saying what they're trying to say right out of the gate. And so if people don't talk like you or think as quickly as you, or you think you know what they're saying, you can make some really bad judgments and not actually get the goodness of what they, are trying to say. So long answer short, no, I probably wouldn't have listened to myself.
Yeah, it's oh man, it's a fascinating question to think about. Hey, where could people connect with you if they want to reach out, connect with you, learn more about 360? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah. So go to our website, pipeline-360.com. We wanted to buy pipeline360.com, but the guy won't respond to our requests. Come on, man. Come on. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. I used to do X, which I don't know why people say formerly known as Twitter. It's like, it's been X for long enough. Yeah, but connect with me on LinkedIn. It's easy to find me, Matt Hummel. And I do have a podcast, which you graciously mentioned. I've got the Pipeline Brew podcast. So I bring on mostly revenue-oriented marketers, although I did have my first chief growth officer on yesterday. That episode's going to drop soon. It was an awesome conversation. But, we talk everything from, like what is helping you drive meaningful growth at your business? And then I spend the second half of the episode just getting to know that person. It's kind of cheesy, but I'm like, what's the person behind the pipeline? Because at the end of the day, we're all people selling to people. So it's a great opportunity for me because that's how I roll in life and in business. I try to be conversational and look, I take my work seriously and I'm passionate about it, but we're all people and I just try to keep it real. And so it's a good kind of hybrid podcast of some great business talk, but just getting to know people.
Dude, I'm gonna have to quote you on that. I don't know. We have to just write a book just so we can have this quote in there. Understand the person behind the pipeline. Let's go. Let's go. Hey, we're gonna link to all those things in the show notes. Dude, thank you so much for coming on here. This has been just like a hell of a journey. And man, we had a whole list, 5 different things with a little Yahtzee bonus at the back. Man, I feel like I've got a bunch of takeaways from this. I feel like I We talk through the achieving goals, but having achievable goals. Like there's just so many goodies from this one episode, and we could clip this thing for days. So it's been great, man. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's a blast having this opportunity to do this with you, and really appreciate it. So
Hell yeah, fellow podcaster, you have to give me a critique offline. Tell me how I did. And those listening, if you liked it, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, then share this with someone else. Somehow I have a heavy card stock too for these notes, which arguably is probably a good thing. Because I have some to-dos now, guys. And with that, Matt, thanks again, dude.
hey, thanks so much, Casey. Have a great rest of your day, man.
All right. This has been a crazy cool, exciting episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.